Well, welcome back, everybody, and Happy New Year. We're at the beginning of 2026, and we're going to tackle an extremely important topic. And the topic is the employer-employee relationship when there's a neurodivergent person and an employer who is very interested in working with anybody, neurodivergent or not, who can do the work that the employer needs to do. But these relationships are delicate at best. And when you're introducing the neurodivergent relationship, they can become very fragile. But here's what I think is the key: communication based on trust. There has to be, from the employer's point, a trusting environment where the neurodivergent person feels free to talk and express themselves and explain maybe some of the nuances that the employer can do through the accommodations at work, or just allowing the neurodivergent person to be themselves and to say what they need to make a healthy work environment and relationship. So guess who I have as our guest on this show? I've got my social media director, Tessa McEvoy. Tessa, I'm so happy that we're talking about this because, first of all, I adore her. She's so smart. She was introduced to me by a mutual colleague that we have working in the field of neurodivergency. And I said, let me put my money where my mouth is. If I'm going to do this show, I need to step up and be the employer. And what are my needs? And my needs at that moment were social media. So, Tessa, I have enjoyed, I don't know, when did we start working together? Maybe 6 months, 8 months ago?
Well, that is a really good question to start with. I actually started working for Judith back in June of 2025, and I cannot believe that it has almost been 1 year.
Yeah, I think it was about June of 2025. I know I needed help. And no, and it was great. It was really great. So the one thing that I will say, and anything else will be Tessa to say, Tessa's on the autistic spectrum. So that's one thing. And there's a little bit of a voice challenge. But see, I want to bring this up first because my nephew has a voice, a speaking challenge. But and this is where people make snap decisions about the intelligence of somebody. You have to listen to the words the person is saying because you're super smart, Tessa. I realized that immediately. So let me ask you, do you find that that is in any way something that you need to overcome? Do you think people make snap judgments about you because of that?
Yes, and you cannot be any farther from the truth. There has been times where I have completely got iced out and I have been completely ostracized just because of how my speech sounds. And there's been countless times where people are like, I don't think that Tessa can do anything for us. Shouldn't we pick somebody else? Tessa does not sound all that smart. And this paradigm started when I was in kindergarten.
Wow.
So so dating back to
Wow.
kindergarten, I actually had a teacher's assistant come up to me and say, "Hey, can Tessa give Rita the rabbit? Can Tessa? What color is Tessa's shoes?" And she would, and that assistant, who I actually forgot her actual first name, was like, actually did tell my mom, "Well, I don't think that Tessa is very smart, so we just have to kind of treat her like a baby." And I think that she has, and I know that you keep telling me that Tessa is intelligent, but instead of actually being able to show her intelligence, all she does is sit around and cry in our classroom. So we're just gonna keep telling Tessa the ABCs and singing and telling and teaching her about the colors of the rainbow. I don't care if you tell me that Tessa knows math or arithmetics. Tessa's not that smart.
Okay. So, first of all, I can understand how somebody would cry at 5 years of age in kindergarten if they were being spoken to like that. I was very overweight as a child, and people made fun of me, and it did affect me in many ways, and I had to work hard to get over that, but I could get over that. You can't get over. You can't. And so you have big challenges to overcome on a daily basis. But what I think saves you, first of all, is you are smart. I mean, if somebody just pays attention to what you're saying, your vocabulary is exceptional. I have no issue communicating with you. And you, your skills and talents, when I dug beyond, okay, I can understand now. You just have to tune your ear in because, listen, people have accents in different parts of the world in the country, and you have to listen through the accent to get the message that they're saying. I was in shock, Tessa, when my nephew, who's 40, John McFadden, co-host of this show, he can't always be with us. He has a somewhat busy schedule. That's half funny, half not. Um, where was I? Oh, where was I going with that? Uh, so the intellectual developmental challenges for him, you don't have them. He has reading, writing, and arithmetic. So you're good on that front because I work with you and I know how you are. But he taught himself vocabulary. So this is what's so remarkable about people with any type of developmental challenges. They can really learn, but they learn in a different way. And so, as soon as I tell you this example, I'm going to ask you the same question. But John learned by listening to Tupac Shakur interviews, because there are a bunch of archival interviews with the closed caption on. So he listened to the words, looked at the words on the crawl, and one day, all of a sudden, I'm having a conversation with him, and it's like he's any other adult I've ever talked to with all the education that any adult has had going to college, being out in the world. And I said, "What just happened to you?" And I meant that in a good way. Um, you all of a sudden have blossomed in front of my eyes to this heightened individual. With you, how did you handle yourself if as you got older and could speak for yourself? And like now, if somebody is insensitive, rude, condescending, do you have little ways that you try and talk to them and get them to like see you differently?
When it comes to handling myself as an adult, I actually find that I have a way easier time connecting connecting to people through my special interest. And I actually find it easier to make friends online just because people are unable to judge my speech at a glance, and instead they get to know me through written and typed interactions. And instead of leading with my weakness, which is my speech, I can actually lead with my autistic abilities, and I can also start and I can also and I can also develop friends just by based off text conversations alone or in group chat rooms. However, when it comes to people making rude and snide remarks, and yes, I have experienced this both online and in person, I tend to be like, well, they aren't my friend, they aren't my type, moving on. Even though it is really challenging just to be able to move on, I have learned that it's not worth my time to dwell on people who bring me down negatively and who be like, well, we don't actually want to spend the time trying to understand Tessa or whoever that chick is. Well, I just don't really think she's cut out for this community. That is the type of people who I find actually go around and bully other community members. And I want no part of that because I know that if they're speaking ill about me, I begin to wonder who else are they speaking ill about, especially those who go behind my back and make snide remarks in what they think are private group chats. That is the type of people that are the type of people who I avoid in real life and online. Is there a time since
Understood. That's really good. Okay, so your workaround is through writing, texting, writing. Okay, I think that's great. Your other workaround, and see, the more I get to know you, the more I get to see your extraordinary skills and talents. Animation. I mean, I haven't used that yet with you, but believe me, I'm looking at an opportunity to do that. So Tessa does have her own TikTok account. Do you have an Instagram account as well?
yes, I have Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
Oh, right, that's right. You have a YouTube account too. Okay. Um, so one day I'm looking at what my shorts were that Tessa was posting for me on TikTok, and all of a sudden I saw a Tessa post of her own. And it was this brilliant animation. I don't even know what it said. I didn't even care what it said. What I cared about was the sophistication of what you were doing. And I was blown away. And do you and so tell people, Tessa, how you create animation. How do you create it?
When it comes to my animation, I actually use a combination of digital and mixed digital and traditional media. For years, what I would do is I'd make like over 1,000 paper cutouts for my. Let me back up. So when I first started animating, I used to draw frame by frame, kind of like just like how the old school Disney animators would draw frame by frame, and that was a very time consuming and tedious process. Fast forward to 2014, I actually found I actually attended a summer camp called School of the Poetic City, where I learned how to do stop motion animation. And instead of needing to draw a character from frame by frame, I actually was able to move an object frame by frame by frame. And I discovered soon I discovered soon I discovered the ability to make at least 3 to 5 paper cutouts, and I could pose the paper cutouts on like the background, take a photo, pose it again, and that is how I really got into stop motion animation. But then fast forward to late 2025, I did not have time to do frame by frame animation. So I found this artificial intelligence app called Sora, which I do realize is very controversial. What I found out I could do instead is I could just hand draw the start frame and the end frame. For example, if a character was waving, I would start the frame like this, and then the end frame like that, and then move the character's hand to the very last frame where they were finishing the wave. Then I'd put the first frame into the Sora AI app, and I'd prompt Sora, "Hey Sora, may you please keep
Ah.
everything the same, but animate the hand waving." And 9 out of 10 times, Sora hits a home run. So other times, I sometimes have to go and tweak the artwork or tweak the prompt itself to get Sora to draw what I want. Then what I do is I take the animated movie, and I put it into the and I overlaid onto a background in Video Leap. That is where I use the background removal. I remove the background on the animated character and keep the background that I put into the animation frame. And that is how I'm able to have a fully fledged animation without needing 1,000 paper cutouts or spending 10 to 40 hours per animation in the studio. That is how I significantly reduce my time as an animator, especially since I'm now employed.
And we're going to get to that in a second. The last piece of this, I mean, this all is astounding. And anybody who works in animation will know exactly the journey that you took from 2014 until 2025. But Tessa, when I asked you about that day, you said that you do the work on your cell phone.
Correct.
I just, that's something else that it was astounding to me. First of all, because I know what it's like to put a text message together and how many times I hit the wrong letter and I'm annoyed. But to do that animation and then upload it on your cell phone, I find completely amazing. So you have this really creative side to you that I don't know. I mean, when you're okay, two things. When you're looking for work with an outside employer who will employ you, take taxes out, for however many hours you're going to work a week, does it come up? Do you look for work in which you can use the creative side of you like that?
Absolutely. Whenever, absolutely, whenever I'm looking for work, I tend to apply or seek out opportunities that involve graphic designing, digital designing, traditional media such as illustration, animation, and just about anything where I can like let my creativity flow. And especially if I can work with clients, which is actually one of my favorite things to do when I'm working, is to be able to sit down with somebody and to make the vision come to life. Something about seeing the sparkle in people's eyes when they realize that somebody actually took a concept from their head and made it move on to paper or actually come to life really blows me away as a creative and really makes my day. Matter of fact, let me interject. Literally every single job that did not involve my creativity that I applied from, I not get a call back or even an interview. And
Makes sense.
I remember spending an entire month applying for cashier, clerk, and just about every single weird retail job that you can imagine.
Yeah.
Nobody called back
Yes.
except for the job that I was introduced to that involved digital design, which I find rather ironic.
Well, ironic, but and the universe tends to give us what's right for us. And if we keep choosing something different that isn't right for us, it kind of messes up. And
Mm.
we get frustrated. Why isn't this working? Well, it's not working because it's not supposed to work. It's not where you're supposed to be. So I'm really happy that you realize that. That's great. And so let me tell you that there's two things happening with Tessa. First of all, she's building her own clientele of clients like me, that want help with social media, while she's actually working at a store that allows you to be creative and do design and work with a lot of customers and their needs, correct?
That is correct. So, is it okay if I give away the company name?
If it's okay with them, it's okay with me.
Yes. So, right now I'm working at a shop called PostNet. It primarily focuses on printing and mass producing business cards. At PostNet, what I do is I help clients, especially small businesses like salons, auto repair, you name it. Just about every type of business comes in and they sit down and ask me, "Hey Tessa, may you please help me design a business card?" Oh, "Hey, I got a promotion going on this weekend. May you get my files ready? May you print up 50 files? We've already designed them." So that is kind of the range of jobs that I do. Is I either help with the pre-production, post-production, or I help with the designs themselves. Each client is extremely different and has this different set of priorities. Some clients they love getting everything perfect down to the last pixel, even the black and white contrast. But some clients they come in and they're like, "Well, we got a business card design. Please ignore any misspellings. We need them printed today. Thank you very much." So I'm like, "I type in, let's do it."
All right. So And you like this job, you like this environment, right?
Love it.
Okay, this is good because not everybody can work in that environment. You work on very immediate deadlines, and that's nerve-wracking to a lot of people, but you seem to do well with that. And I say that because I am guilty of giving you work. And can you do it tomorrow? Can you post this tomorrow? Like my new episodes, and they require a thumbnail, they require a bunch of SEO, description stuff. And then I started giving her uh, two edited pieces for shorts. And then I upped that to five. And so I know what it's like to be a client on a
Hmm.
short deadline, which is uncool. I mean, listen, while I'm doing it, I know that it's not the best thing to do. So I want to tell everybody, I want to move into another uh, piece of this discussion, and that is accommodations. As a matter of fact, Tessa, you posted three shorts from last week's interview, and the two shorts that got killer hits was the short that said adjusting your work environment. It's only been up like 3 days. It got 753 views. I thought you would love that. And then realistic job accommodations, and I think that got like 300 or so. I forgot to write the number down, and therefore I thought, well, this is important to discuss this then, job accommodations, because we actually talked about what can I do to make any work that I provide easier for you. And what we decided on was a calendar for each month. Because, first of all, it makes me plan ahead, and that's good for me. And it lets you see what's coming up. You don't have to look at your phone. It's something you can paste on your wall or put in a notebook, however you do that. And so it works for both of us. And then once we got through that, you brought up a work accommodation that I thought was really interesting because you called it your comfort object. And I want you to explain this in a second because I thought about the Rachel Polaris interview that we just posted last week, where Rachel talked about she's autistic. And so when she worked in corporate, she was really afraid at first to say the noise really distracts her. And then eventually noise filtering headphones were invented, but they weren't invented way back then. And she also really needs a quiet environment. Some people work better and thrive in a lot of activity. I think you like a lot of activity. And you're going to explain this in a second. But she doesn't. She needed, so that's why the little shorts stick me in my own room, stick me at the end of the hall. She loves that she's by herself. But now talk about the comfort object and talk about your best working environment.
So when it comes to my comfort object, I just want to make it very transparent that a comfort object is not a reward or punishment. Rather, it is something that actually elevates my performance and actually brings me calmness, especially when I'm dysregulated, or especially when do not have the best customer interactive. When I first started bringing the comfort object or even mentioning it to my employer, I was rather embarrassed because I am already an outcast between my autism, my social presentation, and my apraxia of speech. People tend to look down at a combination, especially in society. And when I was approaching my employer, I was like, "Hey, I know this might be a little strange and a little foreign to you. However, as an autistic individual, I do carry this object with me that actually helps me regulate, and I want to make it extremely transparent that that is not a distraction or anything that would degrade my quality of work or take away from the customer. Matter of fact, when the task does involve two hands, I'm more than willing to put my comfort object underneath my desk in my bag or out of the way in the break room, especially if I'm going to be lifting lifting heavy boxes, carrying papers around, or using both hands on the computer. I especially don't want anybody to feel that the comfort object is. I especially don't want anybody to feel that the comfort object is something to be mocked at, or anybody to actually or not touch the comfort object when without permission. So, if you're curious, this is what my comfort object is. This is the object I take with me on the bus, and it actually helps regulate me rather than act as a distraction. Most people tend to jump to the conclusion that because this is a toy that I'm just going to be at work doing this all day. Just like fiddling and fidgeting with it and not getting anything done, which is false than the truth. However, the moment that somebody takes my comfort object or says, nope, you can't have it. My workplace, my rules, I'm the boss. That is when I start to dysregulate. That is when I become fidgety, very distractible, and that's when I start. And that is when I start when I'm no longer present with the customer, the client, or whatever I need to get done. And that was very common. That dynamic was very common in school, especially in middle school and high school, when there was this great pressure to fit in with my peers and to not make myself look different in quotation marks. So that is like a really brief explanation about about how having a comfort object makes my workday go way easier, and how I use my comfort object as an accommodation rather than a distraction.
Now, okay, that was an excellent explanation. I want to say one more thing about it. Would you hold it back up,
Of
please?
course,
She designed that.
I actually not
She,
designed
where did you? Oh,
this one
I
is
thought you
what I
did.
designed.
Oh, that's what you designed. Okay, can you talk for a second about what is the Hollywood Tower Hotel?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking. And just to add, for me as an autistic individual, I have something called a special interest, which is like a really niche interest on one particular object. Most people think that when I bring up the Hollywood Tower Hotel, that I love all of Walt Disney World and that I love Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, and that I'm full on Disney adult. Yet in reality, yet in reality, I'm mostly focused on Hollywood Tower Hotel. And for those who are wondering, here is like the ornament. Here's the ornament version, which makes it easier to explain. The Hollywood Tower Hotel is a 13-story drop tower that you can ride at Walt Disney World's Hollywood Studios. And what happens is when you're riding the tower, you start in the back of the show shafts, and as you go up the back the as you go up the back of the tower, you get the backstory of the Hollywood Tower Hotel and how it got haunted by the Twilight Zone. Then as you make your way
Wow.
across the fifth dimension scene, which is when the Twilight Zone starts taking over the hotel, that's before you enter the drop shaft, which means that you actually drop up and down the length of the hotel 5 times.
Oh my
So it
God.
is it
My
is
God.
it is a rather iconic attraction. And also, did you know that for the Hollywood Tower Hotel, that it actually in the top of the shafts, as you can see right here, the reason why it has ears is that is where two, not one but two, 132,000 ton motors live, and these motors have a horsepower equivalent to 150 Chevrolets, which is a sports car. I meant to say Cadillacs.
Okay, wait a minute. Who lives in there? What lives in there? In the top thing?
It actually is the engine. That's the engine
Oh, okay.
that lifts and drops the right cars at
Okay.
39 miles per hour, which is
Okay.
actually faster than the speed of gravity, which clocks in at 22 miles per hour. So these are the right mechanics.
Okay, so that's amazing. So you bought that, right?
I
Well,
actually got it as a Christmas present.
okay, well, somebody bought it. Okay.
Yes.
But the other thing is what you made. So hold up what you made again. Okay, so you made that. Well, that's very cool too. I mean, it shows your ability to sketch and to draw. Now, let's let's bring one more comfort object out, shall we?
Yes.
Isn't it the hat?
Yes, this is the hat, but I also
Wait a
have,
minute, that's the hat?
yes, that's the hat. Let me put it on.
Oh, okay. Okay, now listen, Tessa came on camera before we started with that on, which of course always makes me laugh. I mean, I had a meeting with her, a Zoom meeting one day when she was literally traveling. She was on a cruise ship one day and on a bus another day, and she has this hat on, and it just cracked me up. Now, who knows how my mind works? I don't know. But when she had it on today, when she came on camera, I said, let's start you off. Let's gradually introduce you to the audience. Let's start you off in your beautiful suit and business attire. And then we will introduce the hat as another comfort object. So I'm kind of thinking, Tessa, have you worn that at PostNet yet? The
Guilty,
hat?
guilty truth. Yes.
And did they crack up?
Yes, they did. And they said, keep wearing it. That's how you get customers to recognize who you are.
That's okay. That's right. These are smart people. I love these people already. First of all, because they hired you. Second of all, because they recognize that. So, going back to human nature and how we all have to combat human nature in our lives in one way or another. Um, the things that set us apart, if they're happy, I mean, if they're nice, if they don't hurt anybody, the things that set us apart are the things that become part of our brand. And so here's how I look at your brand, if I may. You're extremely happy, just in lieu of all the stuff you have to deal with on a daily basis. You're very happy. You're very giving. In terms of client service, you want to do the right thing. You wanted to make me happy, so therefore I assume you want to make everybody happy.
Yes.
And but that hat makes you happy. And so I think it's a win-win all the way around if people will just let you be who you are and let me be who I am. And like everybody, let them be who they are. Okay, so I want you to think about this a second. Message to mothers who really want their neurodivergent kids to have the best life possible, to not have to mask and sublimate their personality, to be able to work with their skills and talents and not just do a job like you were mentioning just to make some money, because that's horrible for all of us. Um, do you have a message for parents, not just mothers? I think more mothers watch this show than fathers, but for parents in general, how they should support their adult children looking for work, and just getting along in society?
Well, when it comes to your children or anybody you know who's autistic, I strongly encourage and advise to let them have your comfort objects and to give them a safe space to relax, especially at the house. Let them stim, let them rock. Be everything, be the comfort that you wish you had growing up, and be the parent that you and always be the parent and always be the parent that people can see that your kid can see comfort in, even if the kid has to mask all day at school for safety reasons, and even if your kid or adult kid is stuck masking at work just for professional reasons, especially if the workplace or the school or even the college is not very neurodivergent friendly. Let your kid come on home and say, home is a safe place to be you. Home is the place Home is the place where you can hold your comfort object, where you can hum, where you can make all the sounds you want. As long as you're not interfering with what family members need to get done or anyone's safety, you're good. Just be you. Also, another thing I wish to let parents know is that making friends, is that for your kids, making friends may be far and few in between, but the friends your kids will make will likely be absolutely gold and loyal. That is the case for me. It has taken me over 15 years, actually 15 years, to make one friend. And even with that one friend, we are very long distance, but something about having someone who I can connect to on a molecular basis between our interests and being autistic really goes a long ways. Because for me, I'd rather have one or two really good, really compassionate friends than 20 superficial friends who I must mask around and must be like, hey, what's up? How you doing? Oh, hey, you want to hear the latest music? Oh, and I'd rather have people in my life who are willing to sit down, listen, and not jump to conclusions about how I sound, how I dress, and especially how I present myself socially in most situations. Because yes, I do come across very distinct and is very out there. And also sometimes, especially if your kid happens to have a speech disability like me, your kid might have a hard time getting believed, seen, or even heard in this world. However, the very few people and the people who will actually sit down and listen to your kid really go a long ways. And that was my case when I started working for PostNet. Is when I started talking to my boss. He understood who I was and what my abilities were. Even though even though my voice did sound very young and out of place for my age. To make it very clear, to make it very clear for parents, please be very mindful about how you interact with your kid at home or interact with your kid in general, even if they're not living at home, because you never know what they've been through during the day. You never know how they've been mistreated, and you never know what experiences they're living. So please be very gentle, remain calm and kind.
That's a really great message, Tessa. That really, really, really is. I mean, it's good for anybody, but specifically, I have talked to enough parents now on this show that have autistic kids and adore their kids, but they had to learn their kids and their kids' unique needs. And one of them being, like you said, they just have to be themselves at home and they have to be accepted. And one of the things I heard was sometimes they just have to go to their room and be quiet because what they experienced outside during the day, whatever they did, school, work, walking home from the bus stop, whatever that is, could have been emotionally damaging and they just need to decompress. Or even if something didn't happen, but it was just a lot to get through the day. Um, so that was I was very impressed with that there are certain rituals that their kids have to go through that are their own rituals, whatever they are, and you need to respect those rituals. And then they'll come around and be social with you and participate in all of that. This has been go ahead. I'm sorry. Did you want to add something?
I would love to add something. So for me personally, I still live with my family, and sometimes I can feel very overwhelmed and spent by a long day of work. So instead of walking in the door and trying to eat dinner with everybody, I go to my room for 2 hours, and that's when I'm able to rest and decompress. And after 2 hours, I'm ready to come back downstairs, eat dinner, and watch TV with my family.
You know, Tessa, this is really interesting. I'm glad you shared that. We never talked about that because in my other world, divorce,
Mhm.
as a divorce mediator, um, I listen to people who have very high stress jobs kind of say the same thing. I used to work with a lot of law enforcement. And one of the issues that would come up in mediation is generally it was a male police officer. This is the context of the conversation would come up with male police officers, and they would say, "I know this caused a riffle in our relationship, but I just couldn't come in after a long day's work, especially if they were a beat officer, meaning outside in the car or walking around a neighborhood, which is really, it could
Mhm.
put you in harm's way, of course. You know, you're risking your life. I just couldn't join the family immediately. You know, so what you're really describing is no different than a lot of other people who are not neurodivergent. They just simply have the life that is a lot of pressure, and they need time to decompress at the end of the day. And then if you allow them that, they can join you.
Exactly.
So it's not all that different. We kind of keep thinking it's a lot different, but it's not. So I want to switch over and talk to employers. You know, people who would love to be an employer of a neurodivergent person, and it doesn't matter. I mean, there's all different types of, you know, categories of neurodivergency, um, and haven't yet. Maybe they work for a big corporation and there are these rules where you can't really ask questions of people in case there would be a prejudice. But if you don't ask questions, you won't understand the best way you can support that employee. And so I'm a solopreneur and I took a chance with Tessa and I said, look, Tessa, I need to understand something. This was months ago. I need to understand something because I don't know how to view this. Would you explain when X happens? What should I understand about that? And then you explained, and then I asked a question about maybe another type of diagnosis that you may have had, only based on the fact that I talked to so many different professionals in the neurodivergent world that I'm used to having these conversations. I also have very personal conversations as a divorce mediator, like beyond what I ever thought I would have. I think people read me, Tessa, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. I think people read me as fairly non-judgmental, curious, wanting to learn, wanting to understand, and very open to supporting people in any way I can. Is that what allowed you to open up to me and share things with me?
Yes, it was something about your demeanor and how calm but yet very poised you are. Lets me feel very comfortable yet curious around you. And the way that you ask questions without any biases or judgment to them actually gives me the space to say what I really want to say and what I've been bottling up for years.
Wow. Well, that's quite a compliment. That really, really is. Um, yeah, I'm almost speechless, but I can't afford to be because this is a show, so I have to keep talking. Yeah, I'm that humbles me. Thank you so much. Thank you. And if we could just all be less judgmental, very open, we would be able to work with people beyond what we see in front of us, but like with you, just untapping these skills and talents that you have that I didn't know initially and that I can possibly use in the future as this business grows. This show, like for instance, I'm just going to give everybody a little taste of what's coming up this year. I was explaining to Tessa that I want to do an employment retreat and I want to do it near where she lives. I know so many people in Colorado, and it's a very neurodivergent friendly environment between Denver, Boulder, and Fort Collins. So that's a great place to do it. And I asked Tessa if she wanted to be a speaker because I think her life and what she's gone through and where she is today and still growing is super important and encouraging to people who are like, okay, now I'm ready. Let me go out and see what I can do. I think this is very important to hear from people who are uh, had the same journey. And then what I learned in that conversation, Tessa, was that you're an exceptional researcher. And all of a sudden, she started spewing all of these names of people for me to contact, knowing that I was planning this retreat and wanting to have speakers. And that blew me away because I didn't know that. We didn't have occasion to use that skill or talent that you had. So, this is what I mean by talking, just opening dialogue, being curious, but being kind and making people comfortable to share who they are. It'll open everybody's world. So I'm going to conclude with this. Tessa, I'm going to give you the last word if you would like to remark on anything I just said.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and I really enjoy working with you. I'm also just really excited to see where life takes me, especially as somebody who is both an entrepreneur and somebody who enjoys working with other people. I personally find that when I'm by myself or when I'm alone, I tend to not get anything done, but rather when even if I'm in like a quiet cafe or in the library, just the slightest hustle and bustle keeps me focused, which I completely understand can be very different from a coworker who loves it completely silent. So last but not least, just because you know one autistic person, and especially when it comes to the office space or to any work environments, just because you know one autistic individual does not mean that you can make blanket assumptions about your other neurodivergent employees. So please, if your employees need something, please don't group all your employees together and be like, well, just because this one employee likes dark room and a rigid schedule, well, that means that everybody's gonna be stuck working in a dark room and a rigid schedule.
Right.
Well, let's assume that everybody has X-ray vision, so everybody group together and work that way, which does not work that way. And also to drill it and to like really hit to really grill it in. Just because you're autistic adult, not your autistic adult, but just because your neurodivergent kid or your neurodivergent adult kid has like likes to schedule or seems to do better when they're following the routine, does not mean that you can completely intervene and be like, well, I know that all neurodivergent people must love routines and schedules, so I'm gonna put you on a routine. Whatever you do, please get your neurodivergent kid, adult kid, teenager, or employee be able to maintain autonomy and choice when it comes to their preferences and accommodations, as long as they do not impact everybody as a whole. So that is just my take when it comes to accommodations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nicely said. I will conclude this. First of all, Tessa, thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest because I just think people can learn from you. I have learned from you and I've enjoyed working with you. So thank you very much for everything like that. And I hope all of you have learned. We're going to put in the show notes how people can get in touch with you or at least your TikTok name or however we say this. Look, I don't even know what I'm saying, but but we will let people see you more online. We'll do it that way, and however whatever information you want to give out about contacting you, we'll do that in the show notes. So thank you so much. I really appreciate. I just appreciate this discussion. Thank you, Tessa.
You're very welcome, and thank you for your time for interviewing me.
My pleasure. And thank all of you for joining us. My goal is to bring you exceptional content on a weekly basis, but I conclude the way I always do, and that is in the world of special needs, we all need each other. Talk to you next week.